Thank you for joining this session. Firstly, if this is the first time you're attending the Beyond the Application event, then a big welcome. My name is Nick Vallis. I'm from Turnkey Consulting, Malaysia, and I'll be the host for this session. I'm sure a number of you know who Turnkey are and what we do, but for those who do not, Turnkey is a specialist risk management and application security and cybersecurity company. We provide consulting, implementation, and managed services to help our customers safeguard their applications and environments, not just SAP, but also non-SAP. If we have any questions during the session, please do pop them into the actual chat on this page, but we'll be sure to come to any other questions at the end of the session. Okay, it's now my privilege to introduce the speaker for this session, Thomas Kastner. Thomas is a director of smarterSec and has a lot of experience and knowledge in the SAP security field. In Thomas's session, he'll be discussing what he thinks the five biggest threats to SAP security are and how SAP practitioners can deal with them effectively. So when you're ready, Thomas, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks a lot, Nick, for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Thomas Kastner from smarterSec, located in Germany, but doing business around the globe for cybersecurity. And it's my pleasure to speak on Turnkey's Beyond the Application series. Today, I'm going to introduce you to the five biggest threats which I have seen in the past on SAP's security problems. And here we are. One of the biggest ones I've seen is the SAP patch management. I'm going to introduce you to the SAP Security Patch Day, which is mostly not known by customers. Then the second one is the SAP communication layer of SAP. Everything that is RFC, SAP gateway, OData, SOA, means even SAP GUI communication is under this umbrella. The third one, which is there since ages, is the SAP user management authorization roles. What we've seen there is a lot of authorization and roles given to users are far too broad. Naming SAP all here, but let's dive into that later. My favorite one, which is most likely overseen, even if someone has a focus on SAP cybersecurity, is the SAP transport management. Covering the path from development to QA or consolidation, and finally to production. At the end, that's the biggest open door I have encountered in the past. And last but not least, I give you a little bit of insight of the top-notch vulnerabilities over the past 2 years I've seen. Introducing the 10K place in the Recon vulnerability specifically. There is a Bitkom study that was released 5th of August, means 2 weeks ago, that has given us the insight of that Germany alone lost 223 billion through cyber attacks and crimes. That includes sabotage, means system failures, production loss, system downtimes, blackmail, the ransomware, encrypting your data, and you have to pay a fee to release these data again. Taking away patents, recipes, price lists, that's covered under the umbrella of espionage, and also simply data thefts, taking away credit card data, user data, passwords, to break in future. So in this study, what's even surprising for me, it stated 9 out of 10 companies, exactly 86% of all the companies who've taken part of the study, more than 5,000 companies, 9 out of 10 companies have been hacked. So it's not out there saying, oh, I'm not affected, because 86%, you most likely be included in the 86%. The first big thing to conquer against hackers is patching. A lot of companies we are speaking to or do a risk assessment or audits, they do not know about effective patch management. And it's not that you patch your production only, it's effectively you need to patch all the sub-environment, because it's all about the weakest link. If you have patched your production perfectly, they may go through development into production, or if you have not patched your sub-cloud connector perfectly, they take over the cloud connector and come from there. So you need to care of all the stages and all the bits and pieces of your complete sub-environment. It all starts about security patches. Like Microsoft in the past, SAP has also established a Security Patch Day, which happens every second Tuesday a month, where SAP releases the top level security patches, which are quite important. There is the link. You can evaluate yourself. And since SAP have established a Security Patch Day, around 350 security patches have been released. Every month, they're not just releasing them, they also categorize them in the areas involved, like simply missing authority check in their coding, a SQL injection, cross-site scripting. So it covers all the areas of the environment, of authorizations, of front ends. So it's giving you advice how to import these security patches, as well if they are manual work straight after when they are. Unfortunately, these 350 security patches is not the end of the story, because if you look through all the OSS nodes, there are another 4,300 security patches all over, which includes the 350 security patches. And the difference between 4,300 and 350 is just being brought to support packages. So if you not import the support packages, you're also not fully covered when it comes to security and compliance. There's another little rule to be mentioned. It's the 24th month rule. Means if you haven't patched your SAP system with at least a support package within the last 24 months, you are out of maintenance when it comes to security patches. So there are 2 support packages each year. They are scheduled, and our advice is to update the support packages ASAP. Reason why? Quite simple. If the security patches or the support packages are released, they're public knowledge. And if you're not importing them immediately, there's a game between the hackers. They are developing attack methods versus you patching your SAP system. So it's quite important that you will win that race. If you're just missing out one of these security patches, they will win the race. So knowing the schedules of the support packages, you should straight after import them and do also your schedule. They might be here and there a week late, but not that big of a time difference being late, so you can stick to your schedule. Covering the patch management is maybe the most important ones. Unfortunately, a lot of companies saying, I can't do support packages ASAP because I do not have the possibility of the functional regression tests. If this is the case, then we can help out and nail down when it comes to security patch day, which of these security patches need to be patched or tested anyhow. So that's the gameplay. For example, if you have an HR system and there's a CRM security patch, you just import that and forget about it. If it's an HR patch, then we can tell you if it needs to be tested, and if so, what areas. So we detecting for that patch the root, like which program is affected, which UI is affected, and who did use that in the past, means which users, and those can be then advised if they need to test and how to test. So we can really be effective when it comes to security patches import every month. The second big thing is the SAP communication layer. And there we usually start with the RFC. You can do your own check. There's a program RFC CHK, which gives you quite a substance in what to look after when it comes to RFC connections. This is the output, for example, and I've just highlighted which of these RFC destinations have a password, a fixed password saved within the RFC destination for these blackened users. Why is that? I could, for example, easily click on TD-SM2, and all in a sudden, I'm in that SAP system. It even gives you the possibility to say, could I really connect to that system, or was I not able to connect? So where is the vulnerability? You first, of all, check where the connection was successfully before you go for those who may be not reached because of they're in another network segment, or they might be outdated destination because the system was either down or not used anymore. So you have all the weapons to double check and then take countermeasures for vulnerable RFC connections. Another big spot is the so-called ICM or ICF, the Internet Communication Framework, or ICM Internet Communication Manager, or you simply go to transaction SICF and double check which of these services are activated and which are not. Most likely these services, Fury services, for example, do not communicate encrypted or not, or you have enabled services that been advised by SAP even that you should not enable them because they allow you to enter your SAP system without a user ID and password. So there are OSS nodes there, which of these services must not be enabled, especially in production, obviously. I've mentioned the secure communication that not just is for RFC connection or ICF services. HTTP must not be used. Use instead HTTPS, and even sub-GUI can communicate without encryption. The problem is if you can sniff the communication stream, the transport layer, then for the login part, I can sniff user and password, which is being transferred in clear text, and can then later misuse those to log in myself and do harm to your SAP system. So it's quite essential to even enable sub-GUI communication, to SNC, secure network communication. The same is for RFC. You should enable every connection with secure network communication, as well as your internet stream with HTTPS. When we go and audit SAP systems, user management, authorization, roles, profile, we always get hits. Simply run RSUSR 003 report to double check the most important standard users. Here's the list when running RSUSR 003. In that particular system, for example, I could log in into client 66 with substar with this password 0607-9092, where the first release of an R3 system was released. And knowing that these are the standard users and standard passwords, they are public knowledge. I could go in there and go from client 66 to your production client, manipulate data, extract data, or do other bad stuff with the SAP system, even shut it down. RSU's USR 003 unfortunately does not check all SAP standard users and is only available for NetWeaver systems. So you need to check all the SAP standard users across your SAP landscape. There are about 50 plus SAP standard users we know, and it's not just those shown in that screen. Talking about weak password hashes, if you still use passwords, SAP has used in the past weak password hashes. They are broken. Also, the how-to. There are password cracking tools like OL Hashcat and Check the Ripper. And those weak password hashes are unfortunately still stored in your master data of the user record. In that case, it's the column B code. It's the user's name that acts as a salt in the password hash, so it's easy to crack. And using that, including some unfortunate settings in your SAP systems, I could use still log in with the B code, even though you have even upgraded and use more secure password hashes. Last but not least, just last week, I've done a screening of an SAP system having about 5,000 user IDs, and about 5% of those have had sub-all. That's a no-go. This number, this figure, should have 0. Only a firefighter should have sub-all, and that just temporarily and not always. Just for the investigation of an incident, the firefighter should have sub-all. Once the incident has been investigated, you should log the firefighter and take away all the profiles of the firefighter again and start all over for the next incident for the firefighter to be investigated. So that's the best practice approach, and you should not deviate from that. Now my favorite one, and you will see why that is my favorite. Let's say I'm a common developer in your company or an external configurator for your SAP system, and I'm just having SAP development authorizations. So I'm fully enabled in your development environment, tracking all my changes in transport requests, and then transport it from development to QA to production. When I'm setting up transport requests, some of these transport requests taking 100 entries, 1,000 entries, even 5,000 entries is not an exception. And I can sneak in, because I have all rights on the development system, a simple line in a transport request, R3TR USR02, my username, and when that transport request hits production, it does create a user ID, which then I can use, fully enabled with all the authorization. I would not even be detected by screening programs that double check the change documents of user data, because I'm flying under the radar of these change documents. Transport requests do not create change documents. Now that you know I can sneak in something for user data, you may think about, wow, what's going on if I'm changing HCM data? I could manipulate my own data of info type 8, my basic pay that I'm getting monthly. Or what we really have seen, that someone have made a money transfer through a transport request. When that transport request hit production, it did a financial booking, and the money was transferred from a company bank account to a personal bank account of the employee. We caught that by, we've been lucky that we've seen that, and we retransferred the money, and the employee was taken to court. And it's not just application data. I could even do some reconfiguration and open your SAP system, for example, by simply changing settings in table T000 and create an additional client there. Because knowing the specifics of an SAP system, creating a new client, it automatically also creates in that client SAP star if it's not configured correctly. And as you have seen in client 66, substar standard password can log in and do completely take over your SAP environment. That's the reason why subtransport management is my favorite, not because I can do harm to your SAP system. It's most of the time overseen as the big open door to your production environment. Nobody is investigating what is being transferred to from D to Q to P, because you need to automate that. You can't do by a human being. It's not possible. So over the past 2 years of investigating vulnerabilities of SAP systems, there are 2 big ones that hit quite the market. It's the so-called 10K Blaze, and the other one is called Recon. Those are the most known and most important vulnerabilities that have been out there just a year ago, I guess. Yeah, a year ago. Even some security researchers spoke up in a webinar, even giving a complete instruction, including code, how to crack 10K Blaze. So even my 13-year-old niece would be able to do that. I've tried it myself, and it took me 10 minutes to walk through the instruction, do the install, and break into an SAP system. So it's easy, it's quite simple, it's easy. And that's the reason why you should really take care, do your patch management, and hardening your configuration of each of your SAP system. Sub gateways on the ABAP stack, and on the sub Java stack, there's Recon. That's the vulnerability allowing you, without user, without password, break into your SAP system. That was recognized as a CVSS 10. So there's a scoring card of security vulnerabilities from 0 to 10, and 10 is the most vulnerable finding, and Gateway and Java Stack, Recon and Turnkey Blaze are on top, means of a rating of 10. What we also have seen in our investigations is if you have changed your SAP system or enhanced your SAP system with custom ABAP code. So SAP, of course, too, but that's been taken care of with the security patch day. But your custom code, that also needs attention. And I've just lined up 5 out of the most 10 known ABAP code vulnerabilities. A simple one is a missing authority check or a broken authority check. So missing authority check is you can launch an SAP ABAP system and there is no programmed authorization check, and you can launch it, it does the change or it does the export, and you can walk away with data. Directory traversal or even hard-coded usernames or hard-coded bank accounts we have seen. I remember an incident with an Swiss insurer where we have found a bank account, a hard-coded one, and there was a guy transferred also money from an internal company bank account to an external bank account, also was then caught and be jailed. However, you be proactive and not letting such ABAP code being transferred into your production environment. So that's the end. If you have questions, please let me know. At the end of the session, we also have emails. If you're hesitating to put out your questions directly, feel free to reach out to Nick Wallace or myself. Here are the email addresses, and we get in contact and we can discuss your topics in privacy.